We are diving headfirst today into something that, on the surface, seems super niche.
Specialized fish keeping.
Right. But it explodes pretty quickly into this really complex lesson on genetics, a bit of consumer demand, and some very tactical decision making.
It really does.
And it all starts with a single blog post about a hobbyist making what seems like a simple purchase.
That's right. Our source today is Notes on Fish Keeping, specifically Part 155 by someone named Ang, who calls themselves an old software plumber.
I love that description.
Me too. And it's actually really important because you see them approach this very biological, almost intuitive hobby with a very methodical, analytical mind, like an engineer would.
And Ang's goal was pretty clear. They were setting up a new breeding area for fish.
Simple enough.
But then they see a fish, think, okay, that's a Zebra Cichlid. Easy identification. Done. But of course, it's not that simple.
It never is. Ang mentions that later on, after some research, and I love this phrase, using AI-assisted identification.
Of course.
The initial guess was wrong. And that right there, the fact that you need an app to identify a fish in a pet store, that tells you everything about its murky origins.
We're not dealing with a purebred animal here.
Not even close.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to break down the polar/Panda Parrot Cichlid.
We're going to unpack its incredibly tangled, multi-species hybrid family tree.
Then look at how these color variations are marketed. And most important, uncover the simple visual trick that lets a breeder sidestep one of the hardest parts of the job.
So let's start with that genealogy. It's the reason Ang needed the AI in the first place. You mentioned the Zebra Cichlid.
Right, the Amadilenia nigrofasciata.
Yeah, a classic feisty Central American cichlid.
Right.
But the polar panda isn't just a simple cross with that. It's part of this huge, commercially popular group called the Parrot Cichlid hybrid group.
It's perfect that Ang, the software plumber, bought a fish that basically needs a flow chart to figure out its ancestry.
It really is.
Okay, let's trace this bloodline for everyone listening, because you really have to understand the parts to get why the whole thing is so complex.
Okay, so the polar panda is, you could say, a third-generation hybrid, layer 1. It's a cross between that Zebra Cichlid
The aggressive, stripy one?
and the blood parrot cichlid.
Okay, stop right there. The blood parrot cichlid isn't a natural species either, is it? It's already a hybrid.
Exactly. It's a hybrid of a hybrid, basically. The blood parrot itself is a cross between the Midas cichlid, that's Amphilophus citronellus, and the redhead cichlid, Vieja melanaris.
And those are both big, aggressive fish from Central America. The Midas cichlid especially. I mean, that's the one known for its size, its temper, and sometimes that huge, lump on its head.
It's a neutral hump, yeah.
So if you're keeping score at home, you take the Midas and the redhead.
That's layer 2, making the blood parrot.
Then you cross that result with the Zebra Cichlid.
And that's layer 1, and boom, you get the polar panda cichlid.
So it's this complicated genetic cocktail made from at least 3 completely distinct species.
Precisely. And that context is so critical. Yeah. When you're dealing with a hybrid of a hybrid, especially with cichlids, you're just asking for genetic instability.
Which means what for a breeder?
It means you have to ask, how stable are the colors? How reliably will those features get passed down? And, the big one, is this fish even fertile? That's a huge issue in hybrid fish.
That raises a really good question then. If Ang is setting up a breeding operation, why on earth would they risk bringing in a triple hybrid that might not even be able to reproduce?
It's a huge red flag.
It seems like a massive gamble for a project that's just getting started.
It absolutely is. And that tension is really at the core of this whole story. But it leads us right into the next point, which is all the confusion around its appearance.
The naming. Polar versus panda.
Exactly.
I mean, with a genetic mix like that, zebra, Midas, redhead, it's no wonder the colors are all over the place. You might think polar and panda are different fish.
But they're not. They're just different color expressions of the exact same complicated cross. Color morphs, really, that have been stabilized over time.
So Ang notes that the ones they saw, the ones they bought, had this vibrant blue or sort of icy white-blue stripe.
Right, which gives you the name polar. It's about that cool, icy coloring.
It's a totally manufactured look designed to catch your eye in the store. The polar name is just marketing for those blue tones.
Whereas the panda type, like the name suggests, has a more prominent black and white or gray pattern, a lot like the bear.
So higher contrast, less of that shiny iridescent blue.
Exactly. The names are just categories for whichever genetic trait happened to show up strongest.
What's really interesting, though, is that even with all this manufactured appeal, Ang is very clear about their own opinion.
Oh, yeah.
They state they are generally not a fan, purely for aesthetic reasons, of the whole parrot cichlid group.
So basically, Ang thinks this fish is unattractive.
And that brings us right back to that central question. Why would you buy a fish you don't even like for your brand new breeding setup?
For someone as analytical as Ang, there had to be an overwhelming practical reason, something that completely overrides personal taste.
The old software plumber looking for the most efficient solution.
Exactly. And the problem they're solving is maybe the single most difficult part of breeding cichlids.
Identifying the gender.
That's it. The deciding factor, Ang writes, was the seemingly easy gender identification.
We should probably pause here and explain why easy identification is such a huge deal.
Please.
Yeah.
Because with most cichlids, sexing them is a total nightmare.
You're trying to spot these tiny differences in fin size, maybe head shape, or the most reliable way is vent checking.
Which is just awful. It's invasive, it's difficult.
And you can't even do it until the fish is basically fully grown. You have to catch the fish, hold it, and look at this tiny little area.
Yep. And even then, you might be wrong. You could wait years for a fish to mature enough to show those differences. For a breeder, that's just lost time, lost money, lost tank space.
So the ability to tell male from female quickly, accurately, and without stressing the fish out, that's like the holy grail.
It's the most valuable piece of information you can have.
So here it is, the nugget of knowledge Ang was acting on. What is the simple visual cue that lets you skip all that?
The notes describe this trick that's apparently well known within this specific hybrid community. Mature females often show a distinct patch of orange color on their belly or sometimes on their fins.
That sounds almost too good to be true, but there's a biological reason for it, isn't there? It's not just random.
The context is everything. Ang notes the patch is most obvious when preparing to spawn.
Ah, okay, so it's not just a gender marker, it's a readiness indicator.
It's a hormonal signal. That color is probably linked to hormone levels, blood flow. It's a visual cue to the male saying, hey, I'm ready to go.
That is pure gold for a breeder. You've just gone from maybe waiting 2 years and doing invasive checks to just looking for an orange spot on a fish's belly.
You know you have a female, you know she's functional, and you know she's in the perfect state to start laying eggs.
And that single piece of predictive knowledge was enough for Ang to override everything else. The aesthetic dislike, the risks of a hybrid's fertility.
All of it. And you can see it in what they did next.
They didn't just buy 2 random fish. They applied the theory right there in the store. They bought the largest male available.
To make sure it was mature.
And a female with the roundest belly, which, combined with that orange patch, is the classic sign she's full of eggs and ready to go.
It's that perfect mix of analytical knowledge and direct physical observation, the software plumber's approach.
Okay, but let's bump the brakes a little bit. Ang does admit they may be mistaken about how reliable this cue is.
That's true.
So isn't it incredibly risky to base a whole new breeding project on what could be an anecdotal, maybe even flawed visual trick?
That's the intellectual friction right there. Of course there's risk. But Ang is making a calculated trade-off.
What's the trade-off?
The cost of being wrong is pretty low. It's the price of 2 fish. But the cost of time lost waiting for a traditional purebred pair to mature, that's incredibly high. By taking this risk, Ang just compressed the project timeline dramatically.
So the value of the cue isn't that it's 100% accurate?
No, its value is its efficiency.
They bought a functional asset based on a piece of really specific, actionable knowledge. They're betting that the time saved is worth more than the potential for error.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for you listening? You've just gone through this intensive crash course on a single aquarium fish.
A very complicated one.
We started with Ang's simple guess a zebra cichlid and ended up with a multi-layered hybrid with genes from zebras, midas, and redhead cichlid.
And, most critically, we found the single analytical reason for the purchase. That orange patch. The visual cue that allows for immediate predicted pairing.
It's a perfect case study in how niche knowledge turns directly into practical action.
And Ang wraps it up by calling the whole thing an unexpected venture. But because they acted on that specific piece of intel, they're now ready to observe how this unexpected venture unfolds in the coming weeks.
And that's where we leave them, with the experiment started.
So here's the final thought. Since Ang made this choice based purely on the potential for easy pairing offered by that one visual cue, the orange patch, what is the real value of these kinds of predictive, non-invasive signs? Especially when they might be mistaken, but the goal is to kickstart a time-sensitive and complex project like breeding. You now have the full context to track this experiment as it unfolds.